Grand Admiral Zix's secondary. Membrane flickered in disbelief as he stared at the holographic display. Humans don't have natural predators? How is that even possible? Every species evolves in response to environmental pressures. It's a basic rule of xenobiology. Senior xenobiologist Crete adjusted her sensory stalks, a gesture her human colleagues had learned to interpret as the equivalent of pushing up one's glasses. Not quite, sir. They did have predators, they just dealt with them. Dealt with them? The Admiral echoed, his confusion evident. What do you mean? According to their historical records, they killed them all. Or at least enough of them, that the remaining ones learned to stay very far away from human settlements, Crete explained. The briefing room fell silent as the assembled military leadership of the Galactic Defense Council exchanged uncomfortable glances. They had called this emergency session to discuss the rapidly expanding human presence in the galaxy, but this wasn't quite what they had expected to hear. But they're so squishy, General Vorn of the militant hive protested, his armored exoskeleton clanking as he gestured at the anatomical diagram floating above the table. No natural weapons, relatively little armor, weak compared to most sapient species. How did they manage that? Crete pulled up another hologram, this one showing various human tools and weapons throughout history. That's the thing about humans, sir. They're sneaky bastards, if you'll pardon my standard English. They didn't evolve natural weapons because they made artificial ones instead, and they kept making better and better ones. The Admiral's membrane rippled. That doesn't sound particularly special. Many species develop tool use. But you're missing the point, sir, Crete insisted. They look at their natural abilities and decide they're insufficient. And then they figure out ways to completely circumvent them. Zix's confusion only deepened. What do you mean? Crete brought up another set of images. They can't breathe underwater, so they build machines to let them do it. They can't fly, so they build machines for that too. They can't survive in space, but you've all seen their ships. General Vorn interjected. Surely they must have some limitations, some natural boundaries they respect. Crete made a sound that the assembled aliens had learned to recognize as laughter, though it came out more like a series of clicks and whistles. Limitations? Boundaries. Sir, humans don't believe in those. Let me tell you about something they call extreme sports. The next hour was spent with Crete explaining in increasingly exasperated detail the various ways humans deliberately put themselves in danger for fun. Activities like base jumping, free climbing, and deep-sea cave diving. So you're telling us, Admiral Zix said slowly, that they not only conquered their natural predators, but then got bored and started inventing new ways to risk their lives? Exactly, sir. And that's not even getting into their entertainment media. Would you believe they have entire genres of stories about surviving against impossible odds? They call them disaster movies and survival stories. They literally entertain themselves by imagining new ways they might nearly die, and then figuring out how to survive them. This was concerning, General Vorn muttered. Very concerning. Oh, it gets better, Crete continued, clearly warming to her subject. You know how we all assumed they were a relatively peaceful species because they don't have natural weapons? Well, it turns out they just channeled all that aggression into something they call sports. The hologram changed to show various human athletic competitions. They literally invented hundreds of different ways to compete with each other, without actually killing each other. Most of these involve throwing, hitting, or chasing some kind of ball. But there are also ones where they just fight for fun with rules. Rules. The Admiral's membrane flickered again. They have rules for fighting? Oh yes, very specific ones. And they have different sets of rules for different types of fighting. Boxing, wrestling, mixed martial arts. They turned violence into an art form, complete with weight classes and scoring systems. The General's mandibles clattered in what might have been appreciation. That's actually quite clever. A way to maintain combat readiness while minimizing casualties. That's what we thought at first too, Crete agreed. But then we found out they do it primarily for entertainment. They gather in huge crowds to watch other humans fight each other. They place bets on the outcomes. They train their young in these combat sports from an early age. The briefing room erupted in confused chittering and clicking as the various military leaders tried to process this information Admiral Zix raised all four of his upper appendages for silence. Senior xenobiologist, he said carefully. Based on your research, what would you say is the human's most dangerous characteristic? Crete's sensory stalks waved thoughtfully. Their adaptability, sir. Without question. Most species adapt to their environment over generations through evolution. Humans, they just refuse to accept that something is impossible and keep trying different approaches until they find one that works. She pulled up one final hologram, this one showing human expansion across their home solar system and beyond. They call it thinking outside the box, sir. The problem is, they don't seem to believe the box exists in the first place. General Vorn rumbled. So what you're saying is we should be very careful about how we approach them as a species. Oh no, sir, Crete clicked cheerfully. I'm saying we should be absolutely terrified of them. But in a good way. In a good way? The Admiral's membrane rippled in confusion. Because, sir, they're also incredibly social creatures, who place a high value on cooperation and friendship. If we approach them as allies, they'll probably be thrilled. They love making new friends almost as much as they love solving problems. She gestured at her own research team's statistics. Did you know that within 6 months of first contact, human entertainment media started incorporating alien species into their stories? Not as enemies, but as friends, allies, and even romantic partners. They're already imagining ways to include us in their civilization. The general admitted, that's oddly touching, though the romantic partner part is somewhat disturbing. Oh, you have no idea, Crete muttered. I've had to add 3 new sections to my research paper, just dealing with their reproductive flexibility. Perhaps we should focus on the military implications. Admiral Zix interrupted hastily. What's your recommendation, senior xenobiologist? Crete's sensory stalks straightened to full attention. My recommendation, sir? Ally with them immediately, because if we don't, someone else will. And then we'll have to deal with humans who have access to whatever interesting technology and resources that other alliance can provide. She pulled up one final image, a child's drawing of what appeared to be a stick. Figure writing on a cybernetically enhanced space dragon. They call it collaboration, and they're disturbingly good at it. The only thing more dangerous than humans solving problems is humans. Solving problems with friends. The Admiral stared at the child's drawing for a long moment. Is that what I think it is? Yes, sir. That's from a human elementary school class, where they were asked to draw what they think the future of human alien cooperation might look like. This particular child wanted to, and I quote, make dinosaurs come back but in space with lasers, because that would be cool, and also help with space exploration. The briefing room fell silent again as the implications sank in. Schedule a meeting with the Human Diplomatic Corps. Admiral Zix said finally, and someone find out if they've actually started working on space dinosaurs yet. Because if they haven't, I don't want to be the one who gives them the idea. Too late, sir, Crete clicked apologetically. They already have 3 research teams working on it. They're calling it Project Jurassic Space Park. The Admiral's membrane flickered one final time before he slumped in his seat. Humans, he muttered. Sneaky bastards. Indeed. And somewhere in a research lab on Earth, a team of scientists looked up from their prototype genetically engineered, vacuum-adapted, cybernetically enhanced Velociraptor, and wondered if maybe, just maybe, they should add some lasers. You know, for science, after all, that's just what humans do. They see something impossible, grin, and say, challenge accepted. And somehow, some way, they usually pull it off. Because they're humans, and they're sneaky bastards. Admiral Zix's membrane wasn't just flickering now. It was practically strobing. The holographic report floating above. His desk showed what could only be described as organized chaos. And at the center of it all was, predictably, a human. We may have accidentally mentioned the Space Dinosaur Project to Dr. Sarah Chen from the Human Advanced Technologies Division. Crete admitted, her sensory stalks drooping slightly in embarrassment. In my defense, sir, she was very persuasive, and she brought something called coffee. The Admiral's carapace rippled in horror. You accepted human stimulants? Sir, have you tried coffee? Because once you try coffee, a lot of human behavior suddenly makes much more sense. Crete clicked. The Admiral made a mental note to prohibit coffee in all future xenobiological research facilities. Just tell me what happened. Crete pulled up another hologram, this one showing a complex series of blueprints and genetic sequences. Well, Dr. Chen thought our cybernetic enhancement proposals were, in her words, thinking way too small. She suggested we consider something called quantum bioengineering. That's not a real thing, the Admiral protested. That's not even possible. That's exactly what I said, Crete agreed eagerly. And then she said, and I quote, hold my coffee, which I've learned is a human phrase that roughly translates to, watch me do something incredibly inadvisable but potentially revolutionary. The hologram shifted to show a laboratory setup that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd read too much human science fiction and decided to make it science fact. Quantum computing arrays were interfaced with genetic sequencers, while what appeared to be a modified particle accelerator was somehow involved in the DNA synthesis process. Dr. Chen's theory was that if we could quantum entangle the dinosaur's genetic structure with its cybernetic enhancements, we could create a biomechanical organism that exists in a state of quantum superposition between organic and mechanical forms, Crete explained. The Admiral's membrane went completely still. That's not how anything works. That's not how any of this works. That's what the laws of physics said too, Crete agreed cheerfully. But apparently nobody told the humans that. Or rather, they heard it and decided the laws of physics needed updating. She brought up another image, this one showing a creature that seemed to flicker between organic and mechanical forms as it moved. We're calling it a quantum raptor. It can phase between organic and mechanical states at will, which solves both the life support issues in space and the power supply problems we were having with the purely cybernetic approach. The Admiral stared at the image in silence for a long moment. Does it have lasers? No, sir, Crete replied, and the Admiral began to relax. It has quantum-entangled plasma cannons. The Admiral's membrane began flickering again. Please tell me you at least maintain proper security protocols. The last thing we need is for this technology to proliferate before we understand the implications. Crete's sensory stalks twisted in what the Admiral had learned to recognize as her about that gesture. Well, sir, apparently Dr. Chen has a YouTube channel. A what? The Admiral's membrane went completely transparent, a sign of utter resignation. It's a human information-sharing platform. She's been documenting the entire project. Her latest video, I made a quantum dinosaur, not clickbait, just hit 20 million views. The Admiral's membrane stopped flickering and went completely opaque. How many humans are trying to replicate the experiment? Crete admitted. Current estimates suggest at least 30 different research teams worldwide. The good news? The Admiral prompted, dreading the answer. The good news is most of them don't have access to the quantum computing resources necessary to succeed, Crete said. The bad news is a group of undergraduate students at something called MIT have started a crowdfunding campaign to build their own quantum computer, specifically for this purpose. And how's that going? The Admiral asked, resigned. They exceeded their funding goal in 6 hours. They're currently at 8,000% of their original target. Apparently a lot of humans really want quantum dinosaurs to be a thing. The Admiral slumped in his chair. Is there any good news? Crete clicked thoughtfully. Well, Dr. Chen has agreed to head up a joint human-alien research initiative to explore the practical applications of quantum bioengineering. She's very excited about the possibility of applying these principles to other species. Other species? The Admiral's membrane flickered in alarm. What other species? She mentioned something about quantum wyverns being next on the list. Apparently there's already a waiting list of volunteers to be test pilots. The Admiral stared at his xenobiologist for a long moment. Crete, he said finally, how much coffee have you had today? Only 6 cups, sir. Or maybe 7. Time gets a bit fuzzy after the 5th cup, to be honest. Right. The Admiral pulled up his communication console. I'm calling an emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council. We need to discuss implementing some sort of regulatory framework for human scientific research before they accidentally rewrite the fundamental laws of reality. Oh, about that, Crete's sensory stalks twisted again. Dr. Chen's team may have already submitted a paper suggesting that the quantum bioengineering results indicate our current understanding of reality Might need some adjustments. The Admiral's membrane went completely opaque, a sign of deep existential dread. Adjustments. Yes, sir. The paper is titled Quantum Bioengineering, or How We Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Breaking Physics. It's already been accepted for publication in several prestigious journals. The Admiral's membrane strobed in all known colors of alarm. The what? The quantum coffee maker. Dr. Chen recommended it. She said it makes the coffee exist in a quantum superposition of all possible perfect brewing states simultaneously. Apparently it makes one hell of a cup of joe. The Admiral looked at his console, then at the Quantum Raptor hologram, then back at his console. Finally, he sighed. Order 2, he said resignedly. If we're going to deal with humans rewriting reality, we might as well have good coffee while we do it. And somewhere in a lab on Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen looked at her quantum coffee maker, took a sip of her perfectly quantum-brewed coffee, and began sketching plans for what she called Project Dragon Initiative. Phase 1, because that's what humans do. They take impossible things, add coffee and quantum physics, and somehow make them work. And they're still sneaky bastards. Griet has what we're officially terming a situation, she announced as she burst into the Admiral's office. All 4 of her sensory stalks, vibrating with what might have been either excitement or caffeine-induced tremors. Admiral Zix didn't even look up from his quantum-brewed coffee. After 2 months of dealing with human research initiatives, he had developed a new protocol for handling these announcements. On a scale from they've slightly bent the laws of physics to they've accidentally created a new universe. How bad is it? Well, sir, it's... Felt that. Crete's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sure sign she was trying to figure out how to phrase something diplomatically. Remember how the quantum raptors could shift between organic and mechanical states? Yes. The Admiral took another sip of his coffee, savoring the way it seemed to simultaneously exist in all possible states of perfection. Apparently one of them figured out how to shift into a third state we didn't know was possible. Crete pulled up a hologram. Coffee sprayed across the Admiral's desk in a pattern that ironically resembled the quantum probability distribution of an excited particle. They made a what? Crete winced. Dr. Chen is calling it a quantum superposition of awesome, but the more technical term is semi-sentient energy, being with a dinosaur's personality. The Admiral's membrane flickered through several colors not previously known to exist. Are you telling me we now have intelligent, physics-defying energy beings that used to be dinosaurs? Just the one so far, sir, Crete assured him quickly. Though the others are showing promising signs of quantum awareness, Dr. Chen has started a basic physics curriculum for them. They're particularly interested in string theory. String theory? The Admiral repeated flatly. Yes. Though Rex, that's what they've named him, keeps making these chirping sounds that Dr. Chen swears are attempts to explain 11-dimensional mathematics. She's working on a translation algorithm.